Are you blogging a lot? Are you using LinkedIn? Go ahead and type those in, and I'll be able to kind of read through. It looks like we were having some audio issues. Okay, looks like the sound is back. I will
Yeah.
move back a minute.
Yeah, Courtney, it looks like you were muted for about half the attendees. So if you just want to start by reintroducing yourself and then taking us on from there.
Okay, I apologize for that error, everyone. Um, the our learning goals for this afternoon, we have a couple of them. We're going to sort of walk through how to use social media tools for more effective networking, as well as hopefully everyone by the end of the session feels more confident reaching out into your network for some career advice and guidance. Um, as was mentioned, my name is Courtney Young, and I'm the head librarian at Penn State Greater Allegheny, and I'm also very proud, of course, to be a member of YALSA. To start off my session, I want to kick us off with sort of a quick poll question, which Chris is pulling together for us to respond to. A few of you have already started responding in the chat box, which I appreciate. But my question is sort of what social media tools or resources are you all currently using? Are you on Facebook? Are you using Twitter, which I noticed just happened to not work for me right now? Are you using LinkedIn? Are you starting to use Google Plus more? That they've enhanced some of their accessibility? Are you using ALA's own ALA Connect? I can see some votes for various things coming in. I see people are using, a lot of people are using Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. I know the poll is letting you use one. If there are other things that you're using, go ahead and just type those into the chat box for me. For the votes, it looks like a nice mix of people are using ALA Connect, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Tumblr, Google Plus. I don't see any others that people are listing. Nope, Second Life, excellent. Because of course this list is not exhaustive, so I knew that there would be other things that people are using. But it looks like a fair number of you are using a variety of social media tools. Oh, it looks like our poll actually just got modified so that you could make multiple choices. And we're getting still a very similar sort of spread with regards to the resources that people are using. Excellent. So it looks like at least with at least one tool that most of you who are here are kind of engaged in using social media. So let's talk a little bit more about social media. It can take on many roles for your career, whether you are job searching or if you're already gainfully employed. These include using it for your job search, for networking, and as a professional tool. And those are going to be the three areas that I'm really going to focus on for our discussion, but there'll certainly be plenty of time for us to also do some questions and answers. Now, as you start using social media in a more purposeful way related to your career, you may think about whether you want to split your personal presence from your professional presence. I happen to be someone who has both personal and professional together, mostly because that just reflects my personality and who I am as a librarian and an individual, and the way that I tend to approach the things that I do. However, there are many LIS students, library staff, and librarians who choose to keep their two presences separate. And it makes perfect sense to do that. You may also want to consider or consult if you're employed, whether or not your institution or your employer has a social media policy and how that might apply to your presence then in using social media. I do know that there are some librarians, because of social media policies related to where they work, they keep those very, very separate. And when they're tweeting about library related things and things that are related to their um, to what they do for their institution, they have a separate account. And then for things that they want to sort of explore personally, then they have a split account. So it's certainly up to you whether or not you want to have them together or apart, but also keep in mind that there might be some factors that really do motivate why you decide to do one versus the other. But no matter what, make sure you make good use of social media if you want to use it. Decide how you want to represent yourself. And most importantly, make sure that you are honest. It looks like I see, okay. Are other people still, I'll keep sound checking. Are other people still able to hear me okay? Okay, good. Thank you. Now, using social media in your job search can be very valuable, whether you're looking for your first job or your next job. You can use it to let others know you're looking for a position. If someone knows that there will be openings at their library that might be of interest to you, then they can pass that information along. I frequently see folks saying, I'm going to be looking for a job in this particular region, and someone will reply and say, oh, I know that we're going to have some retirements and they're going to be recreating some positions, so I'll let you know. It's a very valuable and easy way to use social media in your job search. You can also use it to connect with other job seekers or other newly employed librarians with whom you can share tips and hints. It's also important for you to have that network of folks who can uh, get a sense, someone you can talk to who can relate to what you're doing with regards to that experience, whether it be sharing, how tips with regards to phone interviews or on-site interviews and how to prepare for that. Your network can be incredibly helpful with regards to that part of the process. But of course, you can use it to find jobs. And I think that that's often sort of how people primarily use social media with regards to their job search. I've only highlighted two resources that I've noted are particularly active on social media, but obviously there is, a very large list of resources that you can use and take a look at. But I really think that ALA Job List is the one to start with. Um, ALA Job List is a collaboration of ALA's American Libraries, ACRL, the Association for College and Research Libraries, and ALA's HRDR, and that's the Human Resources Development and Recruitment um, unit of ALA. And they came together and put together and started collaborating on ALA Job List. And it really is a phenomenal resource if you're using social media to look for a job. Uh, Job lists, they're in a variety of places via social media. So they're tweeting job postings of all types. Um, they also, if you're using Google Plus and you follow ALA Job List, they share various articles related to job searches, career development, that sort of thing. But they also have a presence on Facebook and LinkedIn. So ALA Job List should be a part of your social media world, no matter where you're working, because they probably have a presence in one of those places. I also wanted to highlight the I Need a Library Job that also goes by its initial acronym INALJ. And it's evolved from um, a woman who was an LIS student at the time who sent out a request to her school friends to for them to share job listings that they'd gathered through a variety of sources so they could bring all those listings together. And it sort of has grown into becoming a larger list. And well, now that it exists as a site, it has a Facebook page and also a Twitter presence. Um, so in addition to those resources, you can also subscribe to receive a daily job listing digest email that's sent out by the I Need a Library Job folks. But it's also interesting in the way that it's using social media as well. That I often see on Twitter where the account will send out and tweet congratulations to people when they do get hired for a job. It was funny because I actually recently saw a tweet and recognized you do the first name and the last initial of someone who had found a job, and that was sort of an inspiration to me to send that person an email to say, congratulations, I hear that you landed a new job. So, I think it's nice in that it kind of closes that loop when you're doing that job search to also say, hey, you've been successful in doing this and we want to congratulate you. So, like I said, there are a number of job resources that are working in social media, but these are two that I really wanted to highlight that I think are very effectively using it, as well as effective resources for you as someone who's using social media to use as well. Next thing I want to talk about is networking. I often highlight networking online as a great complement to in-person networking. It is also a great way to meet new library-related people. I've met and developed professional relationships with many librarians via Facebook and Twitter, often before meeting them in person, if I've ever met them at all. And in many cases, they're people that I know exclusively on Twitter and have a probably low probability of meeting them, but still value and appreciate them as colleagues. Think of social media networking as an opportunity not only to make connections, but also allow you to keep those connections going, sustain them, keep conversations from sort of dropping off. Social media allows you to stay sort of perpetually connected. And online networking allows you to significantly expand your colleague base geographically, letting you get to know people locally, maybe at the state level, the national level, as well as the international level. It also allows you to connect with library people doing work similar to yours, or maybe even work that's completely different. It can be very valuable to build a network of other youth services librarians, for example, but it also might be useful and nice to have a librarian who maybe is working in a different type of library or different part of a library, but then you discover that you have very similar things going on, and there are things that you can learn from them. So it's a great way to expand your network. Here I've highlighted some places that you may connect with others, and also obviously using social media to extend your conversations. Of particular note are looking for librarian Facebook groups, many of which exist, and new ones seem to be popping up all the time, and also folks that you can follow on Twitter. And I see, oops. So I'm going to ask you all another quick question here. It's going to be pulled together. Um, some of the Twitter accounts you all can highlight that are library related, or even more importantly, YALSA related, that you're following. That's going to come up. But some of the Facebook groups, for example, that you may want to look for that I've been added to recently. There's some, one is called Library Related People. Another one that I'm a part of because I'm an academic librarian are the academic libraries. There was a group that was put together at the time that the U.S. Statistical Abstracts was going to be was going to cease, and someone put up a group to save the U.S. Statistical Abstracts, and I think that a lot of those efforts actually allowed that resource to end up in a different home with another resource. So it looks like you all are definitely following YALSA, and I should vote as well because I am also following YALSA. You're following the YALSA president. You're participating and following some other folks as well. Um, so there's a lot, of course, going on out there with Twitter. Um, I want to highlight with hashtags. Following a hashtag is also a very valuable way to find out what's going on um, in the library community or people who are doing the types of things that you're interested in. Um, Live chat is takes place on Wednesdays from 8 to 9:30 Eastern Time, and the person who moderates that chat does a call for questions, and people respond and send in questions, and then she posts those questions starting at 8 p.m. that evening, and folks respond, and they use that hashtag so that you can kind of follow along with the discussion or as well as participate in it. Reader's advisory is one that I always sort of lurk on. I haven't actively participated in the reader's advisory chat, but that's usually on Thursdays at 9 p.m. And they do just what it sounds like, reader's advisory, which I think is really great. Um, and then, as you probably have guessed, people share what books that they're reading on Fridays using the Friday Reads hashtag. So hopefully you all will uh, take some time tomorrow and share the things that you're reading. And I'm taking a look to see there's some other hashtags people are following. TL Chat. Uh, People are following LIS News regularly on Twitter. The Game Mook hashtag, the SL hashtag. So there are a lot of hashtags that you can certainly follow and use to have conversations and uh, connect with people who maybe you don't have in your regular uh, sort of uh, Twitter listing of people that you're following and followers. Um, so obviously, following librarians is incredibly useful um, to kind of extend and continue your network and those conversations. Yeah, for professional development. Um, Obviously, social media is an incredibly useful professional development tool. I want to highlight a couple of things um, that I have found and think you would find particularly useful in thinking about social media as a professional development tool. Um, First of all, and this kind of extends from what I was just talking about, is using it to engage in professional conversation. So following those hashtags can really be very valuable with regards to using it for your professional development because you can learn different things, you can learn new things, you can extend and enhance your own development as a library professional by using social media. So it's an incredibly uh, valuable tool in that regard. And I certainly have used it to have a variety of professional conversations with folks. Just last week, I was having a conversation on Twitter with Buffy Hamilton, who blogs at the Unquiet Library. And she and I were having a conversation about an article that had been tweeted earlier that day. And it was really useful for me because I learned a lot from her, and she, I think, also in turn learned from me because we had a very similar perspective on something, but we were coming to it and seeing it from slightly um, different perspectives. So the opportunity to have that kind of spur of the moment conversation where it's very collegial and thoughtful, even at 140 characters a pop, is very valuable and is something that I look for and use with regards to using Twitter in particular, as well as Facebook and other resources, um, for professional conversations. But the other thing that I wanted to highlight is also using social media for your continuing education um, in terms of a more sort of personal learning network. Um, in that oftentimes you really learn and figure out how to do certain things. People ask fantastic questions related to how do I make this change using WordPress, and folks come to the rescue, or someone tweets that they've discovered a new way of doing something with a particular resource. And it becomes a really nice sort of personal learning network where you can favorite that tweet so that you have that information for later on, or you can follow a link and then either bookmark it, or put it into Evernote, or print it out, whatever works for you. But there are a lot of conversations that go on that really um, allow me to use social media as a personal learning network. And this isn't always, a lot of it, of course, is related to libraries, but occasionally it's also related to other things that might be a little more casual, but are still really important to the uh, our day-to-day lives and the things that we do. Um, some of my most favorite sort of continuing education pieces that have come from social media can be related to recipes, or um, new ways or new uses for resources that I already have available. And so I really value those conversations because they really are, in a lot of ways, like reference questions, or they're reference questions that you didn't realize that you had, but someone, and in my case, oftentimes a librarian, has revealed something to me to say, oh, that's how I can do that better, or oh, that's how I could utilize that particular ingredient. So it has it's a very powerful tool to use with regards to your own professional development. And so I've talked about a number of things, and in a lot of ways, I'm kind of emphasizing some of them here in terms of tips. But my biggest tip, of course, is for you to participate in social media and to use it. I certainly am very enthusiastic about it, and I find that it's a lot of fun. To develop and engage in my networks in a variety of places in different ways. It allows you to meet new people and to stay connected with people who you've had an opportunity to get to know. Um, you know, you need to decide how you want to manage your presence, and whether or not sort of one account for doing everything, so that if folks want to hear about my perspectives with regards to diversity and information literacy, as well as my perspectives on things going on, for example, in the National Football League, because I happen to be a very big football fan, then I can do that sort of all in one place, and people get a real understanding of, this is how I manage my network, and that I'm willing to have a conversation on pretty much any topic at any point using those resources. But you also want to be thoughtful about what you post. Remember that the delete key may not truly remove everything. The option to delete something once it's been posted may not actually be there, may not actually be available to you. And in this age, particularly on Twitter, or even via Facebook where you can share posts or share links, or on Twitter where you can do a lot of retweeting, that opportunity to delete may not really be there. It may not really remove something. So you have to be thoughtful about what it is that you post, and be willing to stand behind it. If you have a bad day, then think about whether or not you want to post something. Or if you do post something, say, hey, yes, I posted that. That's me. I'm human. Um, but, just as with any other type of communication, obviously you want to be thoughtful. Um, so keep those sorts of things in mind. But really, most importantly, decide what networks or what resources you want to do. I certainly have colleagues and have mentored new librarians who are not particularly interested in participating in social media, maybe at the level that I do, but they do understand some value in using something, for example, like LinkedIn or Google Plus, so that they can follow things. Um, and so, if you're going to participate or going to use those resources, make sure you use them so that they're effective, or you can articulate to people sort of why you're using the resources that you are. And they all have value, so that's really important. So at this point in time, I am interested in your questions, the resources that you all suggest in terms of social media, how it's been useful in either your job search or your career development, connecting with other librarians. Um, and let's see, we're going to have another poll question for you in a second, but um, I'm paying attention to the chat window and will be happy to answer some of your questions and catch up on some of the things that you all have been talking about since I was talking. All right, Chris has just posted a poll question for us to find out what type of libraries are you looking at for your job search? All right, I see Maribel has a great question. I never took to Facebook like I did with Twitter. Do you believe it's essential to be on Facebook when looking for a job? Um, I don't believe that it's essential to be on Facebook when looking for a job, because I have worked with a number of librarians who don't have a Facebook presence who've been able to find jobs without a problem. I think that, as I just mentioned, that it's important for you to um, operate and participate in those spaces that you find to be most valuable to what you want to do. I can't say that looking for librarians or library staff to hire, that I have that Facebook is not at the point where it becomes the tipping point where it's, oh wait, this person has no Facebook presence. Um, but this candidate does. That's not going to be sort of major, I think, to the criteria. I do think that you have to consider, depending on the types of positions that you're applying for, um, if there are certain types of skills where having a knowledge or understanding of Facebook would be helpful. But I can't say that, um, you know, you not having any Facebook presence would make it, challenging for you to be someone um, who an employer would want to hire. Um, so, I think that it's fine. Like I said, I know a number of librarians who, for a variety of, um, personal reasons, would rather not have a Facebook presence, or they begrudgingly created an account and then they have no picture and they don't do anything and they don't even log into it. And I think it's just it can be even less valuable if you create an account and you forget about it. You don't do anything. Now, that I think that that's separate from creating an account so that you can sort of observe things that are going on, because there is some engagement in that case. But I think if you just sort of create it because you have to create it to get it out of the way and then not do anything with it, then such a that's not a good thing either. So I wouldn't worry about it. I see. I missed some of the questions. It looked like you all had a mix of, um, there were folks who were looking for public libraries, school libraries, academic libraries. I noticed that the other box was checked. Virtual school libraries. That that must be a growing trend, and I'm very very curious as to how um, virtual schools are, and cyber schools here in Pennsylvania. We have the PA Cyber School, and I've been curious as to how. school libraries have figured into these PA cyber schools, um, government libraries as well. Oh, you're very welcome, Maribel. My pleasure. Um, so, yeah, I think that that's going to be the next challenge. I think some of those students in those virtual schools or cyber schools are probably relying on their public libraries, or maybe, depending on where they live, maybe even sort of college or university libraries close to where they are. Um, what other questions do you all have for me with regards to social media? Looks like we've got some typing going on. Give folks time to get their questions. I'm trying to see if I can get back into Twitter. I can highlight for you some more of the pieces that I'm library related that I'm following. Maribel, I'm the same way, and I think that that is just as motivating for me to just have the one account because the idea of having to um, have sort of a professional side in all those resources and a personal side in all those resources. I think that it would, for me personally, it would start to get muddy. But I know folks who are very, very effective in managing their social media presence as an individual and as whatever library hat that they happen to be wearing. But I think that because there are more and more social media spaces to be active in, sort of to add another uh, resource on top of that. Really, you're then adding two because if you have Facebook and if you're doing two there, if you have Twitter and you're managing two accounts, and then Google Plus, or managing a couple, um, you know, will you have multiple Pinterest boards next? Um, you know, LinkedIn, I think people tend to kind of keep professional, but I know at least a couple people who kind of have the LinkedIn for their job hunting, and then they have the LinkedIn to connect with sort of all those other people that's not attached to the job hunting. So I think it gets to be a lot, but like I said, I know a lot of people who make that conscious decision and manage it. And don't be surprised too if you have people who maybe only create a professional presence and decide that they will not connect to anyone who is outside of that professional world as well. See another question. Um, let's see. Uh, that's a good question. When you're looking, but you don't but you don't want to know you don't want the whole world to know that you're looking. Well, I think that as you're working to sort of build your network, um, and make it so that you're not sort of taking out a billboard sign that says, "Hey, I'm looking for a job." I think that you can use your social network as an opportunity to sort of build a smaller core of folks who are colleagues and peers and mentors and talk just to those people to say, hey, I want to start looking for a job. So within that network, you think about, I think that Google, when they first sort of we're coming out with things, or actually, and also ironically, cell phone providers, where you have your the people who are in your circle who are your friends, and people who are in your circle who are your colleagues, and the people who are in your circle who are your family. You could also kind of think about the potential for your social network to also work in that way, and that there are certainly I have some go-to people for certain types of things. So if I'm working on an article and I want a couple people to read it for me and give me some ideas, I have that smaller group of folks who I say, you know, hey, I need your help with this. Or if I'm working on putting together something else, or trying to kind of pick the brains of a few folks for some idea that I have in mind, then I'll kind of pull another group of folks together. So your social network, of course, is huge, but then also think about it in sort of those smaller chunks of people who will be respectful of you and the level at which you want to broadcast whatever it is that you're doing, and will also be effective in communicating with you, and be helpful to you in the way that you need them to be helpful. I'm very big on mentoring, and I see mentoring as really going back and forth. That isn't one direction to another direction. It's back. It's the arrows pointing both ways. And I think that finding people who can be your mentors, whether no matter sort of where they are in terms of their position or age or location, can be a really nice way to help you manage that and identify people and be discreet and helpful at the same time. Yeah, and Maribel highlights the ability to, in your social networks, to establish lists so that certain people can see certain types of postings, and other people won't see um, those types of postings as well. And so um, there are certainly postings that I have when I'm on Facebook that, that everyone on my list doesn't care about. But there are certainly a group of folks who I think would find it of use. And so making use of those tools, because after all, we are librarians, and that is one of the things that we do. Taking people sort of into advanced search strategies, the idea of using sort of those advanced tools within these resources is a great point, Maribel. Thanks for bringing that up. That's a good thing for us to keep in mind. So if those of you who are on Twitter, I see a couple of folks who have listed their Twitter handles. This is a good point for you all to go ahead and throw out some of your Twitter handles for all of us to see. I see Teen Librarian Toolbox um, posted hers, and I'm following her on Twitter. Let's see. Because here right now in this session, this is we have our social media, um, right now working for us. So right now you've got a network um, to start working from and working with. I'm going to scroll back and see if I've missed any other questions. All right, Chris is asking, how do you get more comfortable reaching out to people via social media without a personal connection established first? That's a great question, and as you all may have may have noticed, I'm not a shy person, um, and And I think that getting comfortable, one of the things to keep in mind is that if someone is out there and available, um, via social media, or if you're in Facebook, for example, and someone is commenting on posts with a friend that you have in common, and you really like their perspective, appreciate it, or want to talk further with them, you have that friend already in common, so you can either just send them a friend request and they can determine that, oh yes, we have this person in common, and add you, or you could ask the friend that you have in common to say, "Hey, would you be willing to introduce me to this person?" And then hopefully they'll be very happy to say, "Yes, of course. Let me do a friend suggestion," and voila, it's done. Um, I think that you should be willing to just jump right in there and make the connection if you don't have someone to do the introduction. And I have certainly introduced myself, or um, had done friend requests or made connections on LinkedIn, with people who I did not know at all. I've had people connect me with other people and say, I would like for you to connect and get to know this person. Would you contact them? And I'm always happy to do that. Or I get an email from someone out of the blue says, um, I've been following you on Twitter, or this person told me to contact you. Um, it's a great thing. I mean, it's nice when someone contacts you or wants to connect. So I say you should just jump in and do it. I mean, social networks and social media are not effective if we don't connect with one another. So you have to participate in order to get the full potential. So I say that you want to make a connection, you just sort of jump in and do it. I know that I think I noticed people following or referring or retweeting things from Teen Librarian Toolbox, and I can't remember who followed whom first, but it was sort of like, okay, this is someone who I need to be connected with to find out what's going on. And since that connection, I've also made other connections. So that's just sort of the way that it works. Should never be afraid to jump in and say hello and introduce yourself. Uh, we've been doing this all our lives. If you go back and think about your first day of school, you're in a classroom full of people potentially who you didn't know or maybe didn't grow up with. Um, you walk up to them and say, "Hi, my name is Courtney." Um, and also, I come from a military background, so we moved around frequently. So that is very much second nature to me to just say, "Okay, I'm going to introduce myself." I think if you're really more hesitant and aren't sure, um, think about or determine what it is that you're looking to get out of that connection or that relationship. You want to get to know that person because other people know them, and that's a completely acceptable reason. Then that's a valid reason that should encourage you to do that. If you want to connect with that person because you admire something that they've done, if you're interested in doing the type of work that they do, um, then, I think that thinking through sort of the reasons why you want to make that connection, um, and those positive reasons should be motivators for you to say, I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna introduce myself via whatever social media it may be, or even in person. Um, to say, "Hi, I'd like to introduce myself to you because of this." Well, you have this in common, and this could be as simple as libraries or being youth librarians, or something else. Then I think that that is a great way for you to sort of get yourself comfortable with the idea that yes, it makes sense because we have these things in common. We share the fact that we're interested in whatever, and that should get you more comfortable. Um, it isn't a complete stranger. They're not from a completely different um, planet or reality. You share the fact that you're YALSA members, or you share the fact that you're librarians, or you share the fact that you both know Chris, and those are all valid reasons to make you comfortable with approaching that person um, via whether it be Twitter or Facebook, connecting with them on LinkedIn, or if you happen to see them maybe in person at a conference, or if you see them at a webinar that YALSA is hosting. Let's see. And one more question Maribel asked, wondering about Twitter handles. Um, I don't think that it necessarily makes a difference. Um, I have a colleague who works in an academic library in California, and her Twitter handle is very much sort of a personal social thing. And I've actually seen her comment once or twice on Twitter that someone hadn't made the connection between that being her when they met her in person, and then afterwards it was, oh, okay, that's you. And she always responds, yeah, I hadn't taken that into account when I first created the account. She hadn't created it thinking that it was going to be this major resource that she would use as a librarian. And I think that it's completely okay. Chris has mentioned that it expresses your personal interests, and that's important. And yeah, we're not just sort of libraries all the time, 24/7. Um, so I don't think that it necessarily matters. People get used to seeing your Twitter handle, people get used to seeing your avatar, or whatever image you decide to use. So I think that it's okay if you decide to use something completely different. I know that the YALSA president's personal Twitter account is something that's completely separate from his name, and that's quite okay because it demonstrates his personality, and that's why we think Jack is fabulous. So um, I don't think that it makes a big difference. Just sort of connect and let people know who you are, and people will just sort of take it for granted that that's who you are. Um, I have had folks tell me that they don't always recommend that you all if you plan to keep the account long term, that maybe you associate it with where you happen to be located, because you may stay in, let's say for example, at a particular school, or a particular public library for a long time, but you may not be there for your entire career, which is okay. But then having to start a new account and start new followers can can be a bit exhausting. So so choose something that you like, that you appreciate, and reflects your personality, reflects how you want to use it, and then just using it in a way that demonstrates how the account works. Then you know go from there. You can, I think, change your Twitter handle. But I will say that there are some folks I know who have kind of doing a name roulette, and sometimes that can be a little bit stressful if you do it too many times for the people who are following you. Um, but I think you have some flexibility there. But as I said earlier, own your presence and be honest about who you are in that regard, and everything else works just fine. I think I'm going to turn it back over to Chris at this point.
Okay, well, we're a few minutes before the hour, but if there are no more questions, I want to thank you all for being part of this amazing webinar on using social media in your job search. And I want to thank you all for both being members of YALSA and for joining us today. You'll be getting a copy of the presentation and this recording mailed to you, and it will also be incorporated into the next issue of the YALSA e-news. So let's give Courtney a big round of applause um, with our little Adobe Connect icons and clap away. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and have a wonderful Thursday afternoon.